All right, everybody. Welcome to part two of our conversation with Lars Daniel exploring cell phone forensics and truck accidents. So,
Fun
John,
stuff.
I understand that you've had a little bit of feedback on part one and the impact, shall we say, on some of the readers or watchers. Could you share that?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I've had a couple folks come up to me and said they've seen that episode already, and we're quite impressed by the information that was shared. And one colleague actually said it actually scared the crap out of him because he's learned so much already just from that episode. He didn't realize there was so much with a cell phone that was concerning.
And I can say that that was almost exactly my impression the first
Yep.
time I was exposed to this material.
Yep.
Um, so if you thought part one was interesting,
Yeah.
in part two, we start to get much more entertaining, shall we say. And we are going to really find out just how much the cell phone is one of the default evidentiary pieces in a accident situation. We're exploring primarily the U.S. litigation environment here, right, John? Because
We are, yeah. And this is something you're going to want to cinch your seatbelt a little bit tighter because this one's going to make you squirm.
and folks, I know that some of you come in and you don't hang out all the way to the end because you get called away or there's other things happening, but you really want to stay all the way to the end of this one because Lars has got some really great takeaways for you and your lawyers that he provides for free. And we're going to be providing some links and some information directly to that from Lars.
Let's get started.
So that kind of leads me to an interesting one that I've heard you speak to before, but I think our audience really wants to know this, and I know that I can never hear this enough. We've got connectivity between cell phones and onboard systems now, so you can do hands-free, and you can potentially be, behaving legally on a specific call. But once you connect the two devices, so the truck with its onboard Bluetooth, etc., or your personal car, I understand from what you've said, the two are essentially now uploading to each other their respective histories and behaviors. So now you can, even if your phone goes swimming in 60 foot of water, if your car's there, you can crack that. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're going to talk about is not the data from an event data recorder. So let's make that clear first. This is not that data. What we're talking about is in-vehicle infotainment data. So these are the CarPlay systems in your device, the one you're touching with your fingers to adjust your temperature and your music and the things, the touch screen in your car right there, and passenger vehicles. We can extract data from those. And yes, when you connect your phone, it's pulling a whole lot of data from your phone straight down into the vehicle, and it's syncing data that way too. You're not going to have as complete of a data set as you would if you had the whole phone, but you will certainly have some. But there's other data of really high levels of interest in accident investigations from a vehicle. For example, we can see what your hands are doing in the vehicle. So we could see, for example, in most instances, did you change the volume using the steering wheel controls, or do you reach across the car to turn a knob? What were you touching in the vehicle at particular times? Now, we can pull that data. I think it's super interesting, but I'm going to pull that, and I need to provide that to somebody called like a human factors expert, right, who can then make an analysis on the level of distraction that would cause. We just say if you're on the device or not, or how it's used. That's what we do on my end. We stay in our lane as far as that forensic aspect of it. But you can recover that type of data. You can recover location history, even if you're don't have a location set, who you're calling, the music you're listening to. I've got a piece where Inside Edition came down to my lab in Raleigh, North Carolina, with one of my technical leads, Jake Green, and some of my examiners, and they actually brought a rental car after they had connected one of their host's phone to it. And I'll send that to you so you can watch it, but we're able to see where they went, who they called, the whole thing, and they were pretty surprised by that, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So is this, I guess one of the things is if we're knowingly involved in an incident of such sort, And I guess maybe it depends on the severity of the incident and whatnot. And if we happen to be lucky enough that, say, police do not confiscate that mobile device, um, is it a good practice for the motor carrier, say, to maybe obtain that device, to get it inspected, to get it, analyzed and whatnot?
Sure, John. And when I'm talking, I'm speaking almost mostly to the United States, because that's what I know and what I'm familiar with and where I work at. So there may be some differences in Canada, but
Sure.
As my recommendation to all trucking companies is the following: when it comes after an accident has happened, as a part of that incident response, what we want to have happen is for that evidence phone to be collected as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
That's the driver's phone, right? Place it into airplane mode and power it off, okay? My suggestion usually is go buy them a new phone, give them that new phone, you retain that evidence phone. Given the nature of nuclear verdicts and how things go in the United States and just the incredible risks in litigation, I have some clients who are doing that on every accident that happens, simply because even if it's a low level, what seems like a non-important bodily injury case can become a big case. You just never know the way things go. So that's, that's $700, $800, whatever, for a new iPhone that's replacing what they had. And then don't send the phone to me. You don't need to send it to me. You don't need to send it to be examined. You just need to be held somewhere securely in case of litigation, because then it's protected, right? Nobody's using it. Nobody's changing the data. There's a lot of data that sits on that phone for about 30 days, that kind of rolls 30 days rolling. That's super important. So if that phone's still in continuous use, it's a problem. But if we can just have it powered off, you're good to go.
Right. So, I'll use an experience I just had, because I just bought a new iPhone. I needed to upgrade my old one. So I did something really fancy, and I understand. I'm not sure if it's all iPhones that do this or all phones. You put them beside each other and you go, I want all my apps on my new phone and everything like that. So is that something that they could be doing, so that the driver could mimic, to say, well, I've got a new phone, but I've still got all my other stuff and data that I need? Is that something, or is that going to cause an issue with the phone that you're trying to confiscate?
That's an excellent question, John. So I've done the similar thing you're talking about, because I got a new iPad where I transferred just like you're talking about.
Yep.
I cannot say at this second that I would recommend that. However, my senior examiners have prepared a protocol for everyone. We give this out to anyone who wants it in the industry. And what it is, it's how to either an Android or an iPhone transfer the data from the evidence phone to the new phone, so you can retain the evidence phone and they can go on about their life with all of their financial, all their information, their contacts, just like nothing ever happened. So yes, you can do that. Is there a little bit of risk involved? A little bit, because there's people touching the device, but it's a pretty simple process, and that's why we designed it, because you're going to be at an accident scene, whether that's your attorney or the person from the trucking company, whoever, and if you need to do that and retain the phone quickly, you can't. It's unlikely you're going to have a digital forensics expert you can call who can be there, because there's not that many of us. We're always trying to find ways to put it in your hands, to make it possible for you to do it, to protect the evidence, to kind of help us all in the chain of events leading after.
Right. Well, and with my background in the insurance world, I know one of the things that we're always looking for is defense. Defendable material, defensive evidence that's going to defend us. So if this phone can defend us and show, hey, the driver was absolutely nowhere near this phone, he never touched it, never woke it up, and we have that evidence, that could mean the difference between a payout of $30,000, $300,000 versus something that could be $30 million.
Yes. Yes. And you bring up a great point, because this is a common misconception, okay? The idea that you see sometimes the company will want to get the call detail records of the phone bills, and then we look at those and look, there's no activity. Maybe there's no calls that transfer via the cellular system, or no text message that transmitted in a way that create a record, but those are kind of only the old school transmission methods, to kind of cut it short without all the technical explanation. If that person is using an application that's a data that transfers via data, and that would be iMessage, Kick Messenger, Snapchat, WhatsApp, you name it, all of them other than kind of standard text messaging, or they're calling using Microsoft Teams like we're on now, or anything else that will create no record in those records. So that's one thing. You're not protected with just records anymore, but you make a great point. If we get that phone from the driver with an advanced extraction, and we can look at that time frame, the 15 minutes before and after the accident, examine that data, and there's nothing there, you got a super, super strong case that there was nothing done with the phone, because we're getting so much from it, right? So you're proving a negative in a sense. Like, there's nothing here, then there's nothing here. We know it because we got everything that could be got.
Yeah. Have you come up with any issues, let's say from the motor carrier side, going, I can't demand that phone from the driver. That's his personal device. He's not going to give that up. There's no way we're going to get that.
Sure.
As far as from a preliminary session, like, it's like we want to archive that data for future in the event of, but the fight, I see this already from motor carriers they haven't even asked the driver, but they're already coming up with an answer to say, no, they're not going to give it up. Well, have you even asked? Because maybe it's going to defend him as well in a civil case. But have you come into some of that situations? And if you have, what kind of things have you done, or how do you deter that?
Yes. That's an excellent question, and one we often get, and it's a real issue, right? I mean, we have a lot of private stuff on our phones, especially your drivers who, they're on the road a lot. I'm sure that they have a lot of personal information that are on these devices, and a lot of times they're using personal phones, and they don't have a work phone, right? So they can't just say, "Give me your work phone." Right. So that personal phone, the way I like to approach that, it's collegial in the sense that I want to make the driver feel comfortable. So I explain to my clients, one thing you can do that's helpful is to explain to your driver the following, okay? Yes, when we come to your phone with forensic tools, if it gets to that point, we're going to have to get everything off the phone. That's just how it works. We can't selectively choose beforehand. We're going to pull all the data. Right. However, the only people who can access that file are people with the tools that we have, and they're in protected file containers, so the only people who can really access it are the forensic examiners. Right. Second, usually I recommend to let them know that, like, look, we're not interested in your personal data. We look at all this stuff all the time, so it's nothing new to me in the first place. Yeah. But second, we're going to be stuck usually examining like a certain amount of time before and after an accident. We're not usually getting free rein to look at everything on the phone, and it usually wouldn't be pertinent to the examination anyway. There's not a lot of point. So it's usually a protocol will be established. We're going to look at 10 minutes before and after the collision time, that very short window. And one thing that beats objections against drivers like this, that helps with those objections, puts them at ease, but also in negotiations with plaintiff counsel, with the court, any direction you're going, is to say that, yes, we can produce all the activity 15 minutes before and 15 minutes after. We can include everything that happened in the timeline. It could be a message, a picture taken, a website visited, but we can redact the content. So we can just see the user activity, but you won't see the pictures. You don't even have to see the content of the message if that's potentially sensitive too. So you can just see what the human activity was without the content, which can sometimes help you get the ball across the line.
Sure. Which could be helpful in my case. So, because the last thing I want is that picture of me swan diving off the deck into the pool in my Speedo that my wife took, and now she's sharing it around with our friends through Snapchat. I don't want that getting out, because hey, I deserve royalties for that. So nonetheless,
I think that would be a really good way to put everyone off the trial.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I know from an insurer's perspective, even if we're at fault for something, we want to know that information. So if a driver's like, I don't want you to have my phone because I know you're going to find out. Well, you know what? We're going to find out anyway, because I'm sure if we're not dealing with that phone, we could have plaintiff counsel subpoena that phone, and they'll be investigating and doing a forensic audit on it, and they'll find the information before we will, which is not going to be in our favor.
Or you're facing a spoliation where the determination is the reason it's not available is because it would have been contrary to protecting you or proving you innocent. Therefore, you're proven guilty, and bada boom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rick, you bring it, but that I'm not even going to add anything to that. That's absolutely a reality, one we see constantly. And then, John, one other thing, just to add to that point, let's say you don't get the phone, but listen, there's nothing really, you don't get the phone, it's a small issue, whatever else, but the phone's not examined during the time within kind of that period of 30 days or that early period, we don't get the phone. There are experts, there are a lot of great experts in my field. There's a lot of great experts who do plaintiff and defense work. We do who calls us on the phone, so
Sure.
we do both, right?
Yep.
But there are experts, and I may put them in air quotes sometimes in my industry, who will say things about things like data records, okay? So they'll say, for example, about data records from a call detail report you get from a cellular carrier, that because this much data was transferred at this time, we know they're watching a video or that they're on Instagram or whatever else. Now, I'll tell you right now that that's complete bullshit, okay? But you need to be able to make that argument in some fashion. Sure. So how are we going to make that? The best way to make it is to have the physical phone and have that collected that previously. It's going to protect you from spoliation, but it's also going to be able, you can show the actual application usage. So you can say, yeah, there was data transmitted, but we can see on the phone there was no application usage, because that data transmission in the phone records can be automated stuff. It could be your email being pulled down. It could be an update on the phone. It'd be thousands of things that totally unrelated to user activity.
Right. Yep, never had anything to do with it. So, yeah, and from an insurer's perspective, they want to know both sides, because that helps you to figure out what's going to be our defense, right? What are we going to do? Are we going to fight this, that no, we weren't at fault, or are we going to go, yeah, no, there was something we were doing we shouldn't have. Let's admit fault and let's get this cleaned up as quickly as possible for as cheap as possible.
Yeah.
So, yeah, cool. Well, this has been enlightening. This has been some great information. Mr. Morgan, what else do you have to throw in there?
I knew this was going to be an amazingly educational chat today. My brain is once again just spinning at 100 miles an hour, listening to all the things that Lars has shared with us, and you know, I'm really intrigued, because before we started the chat today and the recording, you mentioned that you're actually going to be working on a new project that maybe you'd like to share with our audience, because you're going to share it with us and we're going to share it with them.
Absolutely. I'll tease it. I'm not quite ready to let the cat out of the bag yet completely, but I am starting. Yeah, I'm starting a school, more or less. An online community through a program that's going to make it so we have a community aspect, but also I'll be providing a lot of education it's geared toward legal, insurance, and business professionals on how to use digital evidence, why it matters, how to protect yourself, and just what to be aware of as they go about their lives, because we can all, obviously, legal insurance, we're familiar with litigation, business professionals, you're going to bump into it at some point, you know, especially if you're at a certain level. So, you know, I just have a passion about educating and communicating this technology, because there's a lot of really complex technical concepts. And if they're not translated in plain language, it's useless to us, right? Mm-hmm. And also, if we can't explain it to our clients, it becomes a liability, especially when we get in front of a judge or a jury or triers of fact. It can be dangerous if we can't explain it clearly so that they can understand. So a heavy use of analogies and stories and a lot of stuff like that's how I usually do it. So it'll be infotainment and educational, and I will send you more information when I'm ready to let the cat out of the bag on that. You'll be the first to know.
Awesome.
Loving it.
And if you want us to edit that part out of the show, we can do that.
No, you're good. You're totally good. Totally good to tease it.
Awesome. Well, Lars, I can't thank you enough for taking an hour of your time to share your expertise and knowledge with us. This has been incredible. I look forward to continuing to follow you. And just one more thing before we close. I noticed on one of your points somewhere, you actually create an annual publication updating strategies and things that go on in court. Is that right? Did I see that?
Yeah, so we have an attorney resource packet, is what we call it. We provide out that has motions, orders, consent forms, different guides, and it's kind of like fill-in-the-blank language for call detail records. It's got a full protocol on how a cell phone should be handled that you can utilize in your cases. So let's say that you get a case and the other side wants to have a joint inspection of a phone so that there's experts on both sides. You're like, I don't know what's right or wrong or what they're doing. You should definitely call an expert in most of those instances. But also, this will allow you to have on hand a protocol that's kind of fill in the blank where you can say, we want to look at it at this location. Here's how it's going to be handled from the time that it's pulled out of secure storage until the time it's like returned when the case is done. It's that complete of a protocol. So we give that out for free. So we're happy to provide that information if anyone wants it.
Cool. Awesome.
I think we'd love to be able to share where to get that information. So, if you'd like to send that, or even state now where people can get it. I know some of our audience is going to want to know about this for sure.
Yeah, you could Google the attorney, you could search for the attorney resource packet on our website at invistaforensics.com. But I'll also send you a link to it directly. It's just going to ask you to put in a name and an email address. It'll allow you to download it. That list goes to me. I never spam, so you're not going to get anything like that. You might get an email from me on a big update of something educational. That's kind of how we roll in my practice.
Wow,
phenomenal.
Awesome information sharing. That's
phenomenal.
The bonus part.
Yeah, this has been outstanding. Thank you so much, Lars. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me. Let's have you back sometime too, huh?
Definitely.
You just did it. We'll have you back.
Appreciate y'all.
Wow, that was some exciting information, wasn't it, Rick?
Well, yes, I think I might need a new set of underwear after this one if I'd been involved in an accident recently, but fortunately in my current role, I'm not doing that.
Well, it's probably a good thing. At your age, you shouldn't be driving anyway. So it's, bad enough walking the dog watching you walk down the street. But yeah, you know what? As long as you haven't got your cell phone with you, you might be all right.
Well, if I don't have my cell phone, I might not be able to get home, according to your analysis of the
situation.
Well,
that's true. GPS then, comes in handy.
You do look older than me, so I'll just take it that you're telling me from experience.
No comment. But yeah, that was some really good information from Lars. I can't say enough about how gracious he was in sharing that information and whatnot. So
now, I will say that observing all that, it really makes you question what can be done about the cell phone. And it makes me think of, I don't know, a previous compliance clips we did.
Oh, interesting. I wonder if you're talking about the one with Corey at No Cell.
Hey, for an old guy, you pick up pretty quick.
You know what? I might not be the sharpest tack in the drawer, but I'm still a tack.
Ring-a-ling-ling. So yes, folks, if what you just saw made you ask yourself what can be done to control the cell phone, I would suggest you reach out to John, because John's got a relationship with an organization called No Cell, and we do have a clip where we discussed that. It was released in December of 2023. So please reach out to John, reach out to me, watch the vid, find out how you can minimize your exposure to the cell phone in a vehicle accident. And folks, this applies to you whether you're operating a commercial fleet or honestly just operating your own personal vehicle. You need to do something about the distracted driving. Oh, big time. We'll provide a link to that video in the notes below. Didn't I say that? No. Oh, I guess I'm going to have to trim that one out. No. Yeah, I'll have to trim that back. Yeah. Compliance Clips is a joint production of Summit Risk Solutions and Links Consulting. Thanks so much for being with us today. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you in our next release. Take care.